Hey everybody, it's Atheist for the Cause here with another article review for you. And this one is about voter fraud. And this is just a reminder on basically just that just because the presidential elections are over doesn't mean that the elections still aren't going, or the voter fraud still isn't going on, especially by the Democratic Party. The massive organized stuff. There's always going to be the person here, person there that, votes twice or something. That's not the concern. It's the organized stuff, especially from political parties, that's worrisome. They're the ones that can control the election, and they're the ones with the money. They're the ones with the power. So it really is a concern. So let's watch this video, and then we'll get to the rest of the article.
It is one of the biggest voter fraud investigations in Texas.
Secret audio recordings seem to show votes can be bought and sold in Dallas County.
And I think that's a key in this uncovered voter fraud. They were actually buying votes. So this is some serious stuff.
Jason Watley has the inside secrets. It's tonight's WFAA original. Jason?
John and Cynthia, right now we have a better understanding of how voter fraud happens here in Dallas County, and the corruption, it's said to extend all the way into the Dallas County Elections Office. These are details captured in phone conversations that you were about to hear. It's this signature, Jose Rodriguez, one of the biggest mysteries in Dallas County politics right now. How easy is it to steal a ballot in Dallas County?
A live ballot or a mail ballot?
Either one.
Easy.
Sidney Williams now providing new clues for county prosecutors. He secretly recorded conversations with a fellow campaign worker, a man named Jose Barrientos. And on the tapes, Barrientos suggests that he has forged applications for mail-in or absentee ballots.
So this is some Project Veritas type stuff where he actually went, and I don't know if you'd call it basically undercover, and he recorded this conversation, and this is like catching him in the act, basically. Not literally in the act, but this is getting an admission, pretty much. So
Where'd you get this from?
You asked too many questions. Were you planning to be a cop or something? No.
If that doesn't show guilt, I don't know what does. You ask too many questions. Are you trying to be a cop or something? Yeah, because that's something a person says that, isn't doing anything shady.
I just got a copy. That's the first absentee ballot that was filed as a fraudulent absentee.
First absentee. And who did it? They didn't catch it?
Look who signed it. Jose Rodriguez. I don't remember my name being Rodriguez, but
I don't remember my name being Rodriguez, but I guess he did it. That's pretty much an admission right there.
But you're talking to the master, bro, so you ain't got to sweat me. It was brought to my
You're talking to the master, bro.
attention because it looks like my handwriting.
It does. It looks like your signature.
Maybe not. I'll never.
Oh, he's being so clever. He won't tell us. It just happens to look exactly like his signature. It happens to, we're talking to the master, remember? And, yeah.
I believe he's saying all this because he has no other outlet. Now that there's a big investigation, he's aware of the investigation. The only thing is no one knows who this Jose Rodriguez is. I do.
On his Facebook page, Barrientos poses in pictures with politicians. And leading up to this month's Dallas City Council election.
Okay, so he's clearly interested in politics. That raises the level of suspicion even more because, someone who's not interested in politics probably wouldn't be trying to rig the elections, and committing voter fraud.
Barrientos said he was working to defeat Mayor Pro Tem Monica Alonso.
After we got like about 700.
Now keep this in mind, 700 votes. That's a lot of votes for some of these small elections, because not only do you have not only are they running for office, but you're not getting a lot of votes in, and you have to reach 50% in some of these areas. And in this particular area that they're running, you do have to get to 50% to win outright. If you don't get to 50%, then you have to do a runoff between the first and second place, and third and lower get knocked out, and then you'd have another election. So even if you win the next one, it costs more time and money and energy, and so you could win or you could lose the runoff. So there are many ways. Even if it doesn't sway the election completely, it could sway whether or not there's a runoff or not. And that in itself, if you say you're in a Republican area and you're a Democrat, and you can force a runoff and you can force them to spend more money than they would have otherwise spent, that right there is an accomplishment. It's maybe you didn't win it, but as a Democrat, you probably aren't anyways. So forcing all those little wins are accomplishments, and then that's less money that the party has to spend elsewhere, and then maybe you can pick up a seat somewhere else.
And Monica's going down, bro.
Hold up. After we got what?
Monica's going down, bro. We have
700.
700 ballot.
He keeps saying absentees, bro. Absentees, those are absentee ballots. They are basically mail-in ballots. That's what he's talking about. He's not going to the polls on the day of, or in person and casting all these votes. He's collecting all these absentee ballots, and then he goes in and drops them in all at once.
Barrientos said. Last week, prosecutors looking into voter fraud filed this in court. The Dallas County Elections Department has in excess of 700 mail-in ballots that are directly linked to applications assisted by a Jose Rodriguez or are suspicious in nature. The address on the Rodriguez...
That's 700 are suspicious or linked to Jose Rodriguez. Interesting, isn't it? How he said that 700 is the exact number he stated.
Applications is this home in Oak Cliff. The family there told us there's no such person who lives there. It's the same place listed on a ballot request that someone filled out for 81-year-old Alice Washington last month.
And I think they might get to this later, but I'm going to bring it up now. Notice she's 81. What this guy is doing is, there are special rules in a lot of places. And keep in mind where you are in the country, the rules for absentee ballots might not be the same. Some places just don't allow absentee at all. Where they are here, I believe they're allowed for anybody over 65, so the elderly basically, and the disabled. So what he is doing is taking advantage of the elderly and disabled in order to cast ballots the way he wants, fraudulently, and in their name basically, and try to get his candidate to win. I mean, that's about as low as it gets.
At my chicken too.
But these recordings now suggest corruption extends all the way to the Dallas County Elections Office.
This is another common thing. People think that it's a lot. Sometimes it is just like an actor outside of the government. A lot of times these people have connections inside the government that allows them to do this. I mean, it's not like if you think about how people get into the government, it's not like there's some massive like security, anti-corruption type of outfit to make sure people that are corrupt don't get in, and to make sure people aren't doing corrupt things. I mean, there are security measures, but there's not really a good way to like weed out corrupt people from getting in. And in fact, a lot of people would argue that it's corrupt people in nature that tend to, gravitate towards politics.
Santos, captured on audio, claims that he pays off someone on the inside to find out when mail-in ballots get sent out.
So that's key to this, and that makes this so much worse. I mean, if you're just going around fraudulently casting ballots, that's bad enough. But when you're going to the government and the government is in on it, and I'm saying the government, but it's individuals within the government, and there's money exchange involved. This has reached a whole extra level. This is when you've got to start prosecuting people. I think organizing it, that's the first step to when you start prosecuting people. You can't really go after all the individuals who fraudulently cast ballots, although I wouldn't have a huge problem with making an example out of some people. But when you find out they're doing it on purpose, but when they organize these massive voting fraud schemes, like, that's big. Then when they start using the government, you definitely have to go after that government employee, and I think it raises the bar for, how hard the government should go after this scheme. And then when money is involved, the government should even raise the bar more at how hard they go after this. Like, this should be considered really high up on the priority ladder for taking these guys down, and they should go after, in my opinion, pretty much as they can go after for voter fraud punishment.
What do we do? Chase the mailman, or how does that work?
Your homeboy that's at the elections office, he tells you when zip code are dropping. Like, he'll say 75221, fixing it here.
Now remember, he could give plausible deniability or something where he didn't actually say, I did it, but he's given enough information, and now he's giving the ins and outs of how it's happening. So it's pretty clear that he's the one that did this.
Today they're going out.
He tells you that.
You're not supposed to, but then you got to drop 100.
He's not supposed to, but yeah. This guy even knows what he's doing is wrong. And that what the government guy is doing is wrong.
Or 2 or 3, whatever it is. You can't do it for free.
He goes in there, he speaks to this county employee. The county employee tips him off by zip code, lets him know which precincts are dropping, either stealing them from the mailbox, yanking them from a little lady who probably has them, says he's going to assist her in a certain way for a specific candidate.
Because every campaign has, like, that guy that takes care of, the laundry, the dirty laundry.
Have you ever been that guy?
No. Come on.
How do you know?
Every campaign has the guy who takes care of the dirty laundry. Have you ever been that guy? No, come on. Right, everyone's believing you, especially with the rest of the story.
Know about that guy?
Because I've heard rumors from people, from other people.
He can't even get it out without laughing at his own ass. It's so obvious. I mean, come on.
This is Jose Barrientos, the man that Sidney Williams...
this is a guy who he wants to tell people. This isn't a guy who's just getting away with it. He's getting away with it, and he's loving it. He loves the power it gives him. He wants to tell everybody about it, and it's just a fire inside of him that he probably has told some people that haven't said anything. But for the most part, he's kept it quiet. but now it's kind of getting out. And it's kind of giving him that reason he always secretly, subconsciously wanted. And to go out and tell the world anyways, hey, look what I'm doing and I'm getting away with. I'm smarter than everybody else. And I'm basically the reason that my politician is going to win. He's so proud of himself.
It's recorded.
I don't do that stuff. I know that looks bad, me and Sydney talking or trash,
Talking trash, is that what you call it? Sorry, the last time I talked trash about voter fraud, oh wait, it never happened. But if it did happen, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't know the ins and outs of exactly how it was going down like you did. Well, I might know now because, you explained the whole thing on how you were doing it, and I've looked into some of the stuff with the Project Veritas and all of that. So now that it's been exposed where, we basically can't know if you look into this stuff, but the average person doesn't know this stuff. And you're going into detail about how the voter fraud is happening, but it's not you.
That looks bad, and I know it does, but that's just...
It just looks bad. It's just trash talk. We know. It's not you.
talk.
He insists he is not Jose Rodriguez. But Barrientos brought us a rejected mail-in ballot with Rodriguez's name.
By the way, I actually think that's one of those half-truth lies. He is kind of talking trash. Like, he's telling the truth, but he's not really supposed to be saying it. And just like I said before, it's, this is about the power for him. He's kind of talking trash like, I can get away with this. So his argument that it's trash talk it's like half right. It's just that saying it's just trash talk and that he didn't actually go through with it. That part's bullshit, obviously.
And would not explain where it came from.
The Democrats are getting tired of getting their asses handed to them.
Are the Democrats cheating?
Well, there's some motive.
I wouldn't say cheating.
What are they doing?
They're more aggressive in going after the vote,
And the absentee votes.
Because it's the quickest way to put points on the board.
Only voters...
Especially when you're stealing them, like you're creating fraudulent votes. That is probably the easiest way to get points on the board in your favor. You don't have to convince anybody.
Over 65 or disabled can vote absentee.
There you go, right here. He said it. Only over 65 and disabled can vote absentee in this district.
But market, whoever gets to that voter first, when he gets...
And I want to point out, I mentioned it's Democrats, and before some people say, oh, he could be Republican or whatever, this guy said specifically that the Democrats are sick of getting their ass handed to them. So this is done by the Democrats.
It's his ballot in the mail, right? That's who gets that vote. 9 times out of 10, he's going to vote for whoever the person that's in front of them tells him to. This is what works on everybody. Let me give you the stamp. The U.S. postal stamp.
And then they'll vote for whomever you suggest?
99.9% of the time, they're going to vote whoever you suggest. Because you got to understand, most of these seniors are especially in poverty neighborhoods, most of the seniors don't have anybody to come visit them.
Voters victimized at the center of a widening criminal investigation in which these...
That part's not actually illegal. He's basically just saying that if you go to, an elderly person's house and you spend some time with them, because there's not a lot of people spending time with them, they'll probably vote who you tell them to. He says 99.9% of the time, which is bullshit. It's not that much, but he's saying that most of the time they'll go the way he wants anyways, just because he's there spending time with them. That does make sense to some extent. I don't think it's as often as he thinks, but he's also probably looking at the votes, or that he's saying so. But he probably is looking at their votes to make sure they voted the right way,
Audio recordings are now a new clue. Tonight, the district attorney's office says tonight it has an ongoing investigation underway, and would not comment. The same statement from Tony Pippins-Poole, the administrator down at the
Good to hear there's an investigation going on.
Dallas County Elections Office. We do know Sidney Williams has spoken to prosecutors and that Sidney has shared those same recordings that you heard tonight in an effort for prosecutors to root out this voter fraud. Reporting live, Jason Whiteley, Channel 8 News.
Just, keep in mind in the past, think about how often the Democrats have said, no, we don't need voter ID laws, they're racist and all of that, and, there's no need for it. The voter fraud isn't a problem. Clearly it's a problem. We have had Project Veritas where they specifically state that, the Democrats do that. They've been organizing massive voter fraud for over 50 years. Now we have this. There was one in Colorado where they found a massive voter fraud. This massive voter fraud has been found everywhere. And, it's clear that something needs to be done because it's only going to get worse if you don't fix it. And it's not racist to expect someone to bring an ID. When you first switch over to voter ID laws, there might be some, it might make it a little harder on the constituents, but that's only going to be one election while people are figuring out that they need their ID. And then, the first time I voted, I assumed I had to have my ID. I think most people actually assume they need their ID and bring it, and then it's oh, you don't need that anyways. I can't tell you how many times I've been voting, and I've actually seen people hand their ID, and then the election person says, oh no, I don't need that. And so I really don't think that voter ID laws are that big of a deal. But anyway, let's get into this article. It says, what is being described as one of the biggest voter fraud investigations in Texas history is currently unfolding in Dallas. For the past couple of months, prosecutors in the Dallas County District Attorney's Office have been looking into allegations of voter fraud. Their investigation accelerated last week when more criminal and voter fraud allegations stemming from the May 6th election emerged. The DA's office last week filed a notice of investigation of criminal conduct, which reads in part, the Dallas County Elections Department has in excess of 700 mail-in ballots that are directly linked to applications assisted by Jose Rodriguez or are suspicious in nature. Workers say the volume of complaints about questionable mail-in ballots has been off the charts. It's totally frustrating, said Dr. Pat Stevens of West Dallas. We feel violated, Steven. And it basically goes on to say there are 60 to 90 Dallas residents who investigators say have come forward over the past month. That's 2 to 3 a day, saying they received mail-in ballots which they did not request. Red flags were raised when a suspicious man came into her home saying he worked for Dallas County and wanted to pick up the ballot. So you could just imagine, you get a ballot in the mail you didn't request, and then someone you don't know comes to your house claiming to be for Dallas County. They're there to retrieve the absentee ballot. Then most people are just gonna, without questioning, especially if they weren't planning on using it, hand it over because they know they didn't order it. And then the people who are collecting it and basically impersonating the government, they are filling it all out. Then they go to the county office, they pay the guy off to tell them when to drop off the ballots, and then he fills them all out and drops them at the said time. That's how the scheme is operating. I got a knock on my door, and the guy was saying that he was coming to pick up the mail-in ballots, and I told him, well, I didn't order one, she tells WFAA. Our forefathers fought for us to have the privilege, and for somebody to come along and take it away from us, she continued. So people are pretty upset. The probe is beyond frustrating, not only for residents, it's also keeping District Attorney Faith Johnson's staff busy. That's the other thing. This should be the priority of the district attorney, because this is the credibility of the entire government at stake. If the elections become compromised, the government itself and society itself becomes compromised. Obviously, one person getting in through voter fraud, that doesn't take the entire government down, but the entire government does become illegitimate if it happens enough. And this will only happen more if there are no punishments. So this has to be the number one concern, but at the same time, we would love to put those resources of the district attorney towards something more serious, like that directly impacts people, like saving lives and things like that. It says there have been persistent rumors of voter fraud and messing around with mail-in ballots for years, but to the extent that I've been involved in Dallas County, this is off the charts, Assistant Director Attorney Andy Chatham said. I just want to take a minute and talk about this. I think a lot of people have had this. I know I've had this, where you start out and you hear all these things. 'Cause if you were on the left, like you're one of those liberal, like free speech, leftists, that now you're kind of in the center because you don't really feel like, you're not with the progressives, and the liberals, like under Hillary Clinton and stuff, are totally compromised and dirty. They're tied to the businesses. And then, it's people like us that have heard all these stories from the Republicans, and, they seem so outlandish. And we might have, I know, I thought a lot of these stories were ridiculous, and, there's like the George Soros stuff where the paid protesters and like all of this stuff. And it's like all coming true, like Alex Jones was right about a lot of stuff. I think Sargon made that point at one point. It's a weird world where, Alex Jones is right about everything. And it's like, well, maybe not everything, but man, Alex Jones is right, or turned out to be right a lot. These Republicans that I didn't believe for a while on some of these pretty outlandish ideas actually turned out to be right. And voter fraud is an issue. Paid protesters are an issue. Paid media is an issue. It's, our media is basically propaganda. So when you start to wake up to this stuff, it's kind of like mind blowing that you look back and you're like, man, all that stuff was true the entire time. And then you kind of, if you're like me, you kind of wonder, like, was it always this bad? Was it really this bad when I didn't believe it and I just didn't know about it? Or was it, has it gotten worse? Now, I like to think it's gotten worse, but who knows? Maybe it was always this bad. But I know one thing for sure. We are definitely finding this information out at a higher rate now. I don't remember hearing about all these massive voter fraud scandals where, the Democrats are outright admitting that they created voter fraud, and they've done this over and over and over. I can't believe it. I don't remember this happening in the past. This amount of evidence. So anyways, says before the election, Sidney Williams, 33, made secret audio recordings, and then it basically, so we're just, you could read the whole article. It basically just goes through that video I just told you about. And it says Wednesday morning, the Dallas City Council reluctantly voted to accept the results of the May 6th election. So, that's kind of interesting. They are accepting the results despite knowing massive voter fraud. And if this fraud happened, how much other fraud happened that they don't know about? Likely a lot. But I think it is a situation where it's hard to not accept the elections. And so I think a lot of times unless there's a realistic chance that this changed the outcome and in favor of the candidate that that these votes are being cast for, maybe they just figured that it didn't actually sway the elections enough. So, but man, that puts them in a tough spot to actually still accept the elections. It says illegal alien voter convicted in Texas is tip of the iceberg. So it does look, I didn't read that article, but it does look like they are going after some of these illegal voters. I mean, this one in particular is an illegal alien voting. And remember, that's interesting because if I was an illegal alien convicted of something like that, my defense would be that I heard President Obama talk about how illegal aliens are citizens when they go vote, and that, basically you can go vote. And that I didn't know. I mean, the President of the United States said I could go vote. But I'm not an illegal alien. So, and if I was, I certainly wouldn't go vote. Now we have this article. It says, here are the Dallas City Council election results. 3 runoffs coming. So remember, I told you if you don't get to 50%, then there's a runoff. And it says, remember that number 700 that I told you before? There were 700 votes. Right here. We got about like 700. Monica's going down, bro. The runoffs, District 6, 7, and 8 are all headed to June 10th runoffs. In District 6, incumbent Monica Alonso will make the runoff, no matter what happens with the 400 or so disputed mail-in ballots in District 6 that will not be counted until the next week at the earliest. With the 400 or so disputed mail-in ballots. But he confirmed himself there were 700. That's almost twice as much. I mean, could this actually be the difference in winning the election, like from the first ballot or not? And keep in mind, we're talking about, I don't know if it was in this article. I guess maybe not. But basically, I read an article that said, sorry, I don't have it on me, but it said that the incumbents rolled for the most part. And so isn't it a little interesting where, Monica Alonso is in District 6, has to go to a runoff where massive voter fraud was found, but still the elections were accepted. And she's one of the few incumbents that actually had to go to a runoff. So there's a possibility that these mail-in ballots are actually making a difference. Even though they got caught. That's the crazy thing. Even though they got caught, they are still potentially making a difference. And, we're just talking about this one person who knows how many got through, but they're only disputing 400 of the 700, so we know about 300 got through. So, but then it says her likely opponent in Dallas County Schools trustee Omar Narvaez, but there is a chance Alex Dickey, the candidate endorsed by the Morning News in District 6, could sneak into the runoff if those outstanding mail-in ballots go his way. With one precinct and the mail-in votes yet to be counted late Saturday, Narvaez had a 48-vote lead on Dickey for the second spot in the runoff. So that just shows you, at least for second place, you know, for even the 400, but obviously the 700, even if only 10% of well, we'll say 15% of the 400 went against, you know, were swapped, that would still like be the difference, the 48 vote difference. So now I don't know if they were voting for Dickey or Narvaez. So, but this is some pretty serious stuff, and this just shows the scope of it. Like this really is making an impact on these small elections. So, anyways, I'm gonna leave you with that. And you know, there were a lot of people who were tracking during the presidential election, trying to track illegals, you know, making sure no illegals were voting, or like making sure that people weren't coming multiple times, basically. And you know, you can't go on witch hunts, but you can, you know, keep your eyes open even during these smaller elections. You don't just have to keep your eyes open during the presidential elections. So think about betting. You know, when do people who bet, who, you know, try to buy referees off and stuff, they're not just buying off referees in like the MLB or NFL or whatever. They're going to like the NCAA. They're going to leagues you never heard of to pay off these refs where nobody's looking. The NCAA is even a little big, but you go into these small regional leagues, nobody's looking, and if someone gets a whiff of something, it's going to be hard to prove anyways. So that's kind of what it's like here, you know. The elections are probably mostly rigged in the small, you know, the smaller the election, the more chance it has of being rigged. So anyways, have a good day, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know what you think.